Everyone, Chapter 8, Video 6, Discriminant and Quadratics. This is Miss Hosier.
And Miss Lahart.
And here we go.
So the very end of our complex chapter, we are going to introduce you to one thing, and you've already seen it before, you just probably didn't know what it was called. The b squared minus 4ac is called the discriminant.
The discriminant.
Because basically, that really leads your answers. Depending on what that is, you're going to have different answers.
If you're saying, what are you talking about? Well, let us explain it to you.
When you have a parabola, there's a couple different options for the roots. We're talking about where it crosses the x-axis. You can have one root, you can have no roots, you can have two rational roots, or you can have two irrational roots. There's 4 different choices when it comes to a parabola.
So again, this is touching at the x-axis once, so there's one root.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't touching the x-axis at all.
Imaginary.
This is touching it twice, but at nice, pretty spots.
Which are called rational numbers.
And this is touching in between pretty spots.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared of those.
And if you know what your discriminant is, you can tell which one of those 4 it'll be. And that's what this lesson is all about.
It's all about that.
Okay, draw yourself a pretty table because this is beautiful.
This is really nice.
All right, so if you're going to have one root, that means your discriminant was 0.
Okay, let's think of why that is. Remember, in the quadratic formula, it's plus or minus the square root of the discriminant. Well, the discriminant's 0. If I add or subtract 0, well, that's going to be the same number no matter what. So that's why you end up with one real root when that's 0.
Yep. So say this happens. If you have no roots, an imaginary root, that means that your discriminant underneath your radical came out with negative because that's where we get the i's.
Boom.
So you have 2 imaginary roots.
If it crosses twice at pretty numbers, well, let's think. How do you get a pretty number, people, when you're using the square root?
Perfect square.
Yay. Positive. Notice it says positive because remember, negative, you're in imaginary land.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 36, 25, 144, etc., etc., etc.
So if you have that, you are going to have 2 real rational roots. So basically, you're going to have to know this chart, peeps.
Yep.
So then if you have 2 roots, but they're not in pretty numbers,
Right.
that means that you have a positive non-perfect square. So like 2, 3, 7.
Right. When you get radical 30 and you simplify that, et cetera, et cetera. Actually,
That's-
radical 30 stays where it is. But if you get radical 20 and you simplify it, all those kinds of things.
They're irrational numbers.
So 2 irrational roots. But they're real, but they're irrational.
Right.
So keep that chart in mind. Find the discriminant of each quadratic equation, then state the number and types of solutions. So this is kind of just like a faster way than doing the quadratic formula. You still need your a, b, and c, but all you're going to do is b squared minus 4ac. You're just going to do the part underneath the quadratic, underneath the radical.
Right.
So because you got 0, 0 means one real root.
Yep. And that's all you have to be able to do
That's
is
it.
find your discriminant, look at the answer, and then tell us what type of roots will happen. So this one, you get everything over to one side, standard form.
A, b, c.
Yep, you do b squared minus 4ac, you get negative 15. Oof, negative number, 2 imaginary roots.
I was just singing in my head, A, B, C, easy as 1, 2, 3. Because this is easy, people. Come on, standard form. A, B, C. You're going to be singing this now when you're taking the test.
So you
I'm
do
okay
b
with that.
squared minus 4ac, you get 201. 201, is that a perfect square? Definitely
No.
not.
Wait, what if I don't know if it's a perfect square? I kind of feel like I'm confident with my perfect squares, but what if I'm not confident with my
Well,
perfect
then
squares?
all you'd have to do is plug it into your calculator, and if it pops out a whole number, it's a perfect square. If it pops out a lot of decimals that don't really make sense, it's an irrational number.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. So that it's not in positive and it's not a perfect square, you get 2 real irrational roots.
Standard form. A, B, C.
It's easy, I don't rate me, A, B, C. 100 is a perfect square.
Yes!
2 real and rational roots.
Woo!
So this is something you're just going to have to memorize.
That's it, people. You got to know it. Have a fantastic day. We'll see you in class.